But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the
shirt. A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win.
That's right, Brett Walsh. As he said there, welcome to the 9x9 Volleyball Show, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, July 5th. This is episode 33. My name is Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago in the States. That is Everett Delorme, live from Toronto in the Great White North. Happy belated American Independence Day to all you American fans, and all you Canadian fans, happy belated Canada Day. We had two great North American national holidays over the weekend, and it was celebrated in amongst many other ways by a whole lot of volleyball going on. So Everett, should we jump right into women's VNL, because we know the playoff teams? It's all come down to this.
I mean, yes, we should jump into playoff to women's VNL, but don't you think we should just our two great nations should come together and just decree, from the second to the third, like North America, like second to the fourth, North American Day, we just come together at the border for one big party. I think that's what needs to be happening here, because
I've got a volleyball themed idea for one of those that may or may not be going down this weekend that we'll get to later in the show.
Oh, okay. I do like that. Because I think our two great nations should have something to celebrate in tangent. And those 2 days, the second and the third might be one. But yeah, Rob, let's jump in right into the VNL playoffs, because as of Sunday, the women's preliminary round for the VNL is done. The United States of America have essentially run the table, other than that one loss to Japan early on. The aforementioned Japanese, who were, first place at perfect 8-0, went 0-4 this week to drop down. But here are your top 8 teams. Of course, Turkey getting the first seed overall because they finished above 8th place, and they are hosting. Your USA is going to be coming in at 2. Brazil coming in at 3. Italy and Paulo Ogono coming in at 4. China at 5. That is going to be a massive showdown right there. Japan, who were 8-0 previous to this past week, coming in at 6, taking on Brazil. Serbia will be taking on your United States of America at 7th. And then finally, Thailand, one of the biggest surprises of the tournament in a lot of people's books, coming in at 8th, and they will be taking on Turkey. Rob, what do you think so far of this draw?
So, yeah, this is the draw, and it definitely wasn't without its drama. So the matchups, like Everett said, let's take a look at the final standings as well. So you got the USA, my USA, a just sterling 11-1, 2 straight perfect weeks of 4-0. No big deal. Reigning champs, reigning Olympic champs, probably going to go win the tournament again. I mean, we
get it. We get it. You guys are really, really good.
Yeah, we are really, really good. I wanted to hear it from you. Now I'm satisfied. But like you said, Everett, the real key about this is that you can see the final standings. You see USA, Brazil, Italy, who I think we've kind of agreed are really the 3 contenders to win the tournament, up at the top of the standings in that order. But that's not how the playoff seedings are exactly, because Turkey, or Turkiye, as they're now being pronounced internationally, because they're hosting the finals in Ankara starting on July, I think it's 13th, which is next Wednesday, because they're hosting the finals in Ankara and they made the top 8 in the preliminary round, they get the 1 seed. So there's the look at the bracket again. They get the 1 seed. They get to play the 8th seed, who is Thailand. Had Turkey finished anywhere outside the top 8, they would have gotten the 8th seed. So that's why Turkey jumped so far up in the standings, is because they're hosting. And it actually goes the same with Italy on the men's side, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But even still, despite the favorable draw with Turkey playing Thailand, who I think that they'll just have way more firepower than, and a home crowd behind them, I think they'll get past Thailand no problem. I still don't think that Turkey really has a chance to win this tournament. I still think it's a 3-team race: the USA, Brazil, and Italy.
You know what? I think you're right. Coming into this tournament, I had them as my favorites to win, but especially getting to watch them over the past few days, especially getting to watch them lose to Canada on Tuesday, which was the only bright spot in my week, unfortunately.
Yeah, how about that one, man? We were talking about it on last week's show. Like, we can
definitely jump into that a little bit later. But going back to Turkey, Rob, you nailed it on the head heading into this is that they just don't have the left side power. They just don't have anyone on the left side. And I mean, they use Baladin sometimes, but they just don't have the consistencies both in the passing and just both in the termination level. And they're just way too predictable. They do work very, very well as a team, and when they get things running, they work so well as a team. But you know what? If they weren't playing at home, I'd almost give advantage Thailand. But playing at home in Ankara, I think Turkey's going to take it. I think you're right. But yeah, we might as well just jump into what you brought up to the screen right there, right before the 3-1 loss to Canada, because that was truly the only bright spot in Canada's week.
In Calgary.
In Calgary, absolutely, because followed that up with a loss to Serbia, which everyone expected, and then 2 tough losses, one to Germany and then one to the Netherlands. Had they won both of those games, they actually could have been in contention for that 8th spot.
If they had gone 3-1, they would have made the playoffs.
Yeah,
that is a fact.
Absolutely. So it seems like to me, it seems like there was a little bit left on the table, and you know, I talked to some of the athletes after the win against Turkey, and they were, you know, like, we have an outside chance of the playoffs. So I know missing that is going to be disappointing for them. I know it's going to be disappointing for that staff. They wanted to prove that growth. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if we go back to those standings, they are not the lowest ranked challenger team. And that's all that matters, as the women's national team will live to see another day and live to fight another day in the next edition of the VNL in 2023. So as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished. We could have done it with a few other wins. You know, it would have been nicer maybe to go 6-6, stay 500. Hell, maybe even go a little 7-5. But we got one more win than last year, so let's take it as a win.
Yep, that's my takeaway for Canada as well, and it does hurt to come closer to the playoffs than you probably expected before the tournament. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Staying in next year's VNL, I think, is exactly what the goal was for this team going into the tournament. And yeah, definitely mission accomplished. And it's funny the way the week went out, because we thought that, you and I both thought on last week's show, that the Netherlands and Germany, those last 2 matches, were both pretty winnable. And of all the 1 matches to win the entire week in Calgary, it was against Turkey that first night, which was crazy. But the Netherlands, actually a pleasant surprise that week, as you still see the standings up there. They went 3-1. They were second to last in the entire VNL coming in. They go 3-1 with a couple of huge wins. I think they beat Japan in 5 in one of those. And they are a core team anyway. They had no chance of getting relegated, but they actually made a little push to the playoffs. I mean, you can see how many teams there are tied there at 4 and 8. Let's see, 6 of them, which is nuts. 6 teams at 4 and 8. Germany in 10th, all the way down to Belgium in 15th, and all those 6 points separated those teams. It's a win-loss record. It's the first tiebreaker in VNL, so it really was that close. And it actually came. It was very dramatic at the end.
The Dutch did exactly what we wanted to do, right? They went 3-1,
right,
and they were to push. And they, you know, that got that close, and we had the advantage on points. But in my opinion, we kind of threw it away a bit. I mean, hey, if you look at the stats against Germany, we made 32 errors. They made 14. We out-hit them. We out-blocked them, right? They out-served us, but still, like, we out-dig them. We were better in reception. Like, we outplayed Germany, but we just gave them more than double the points that they gave us. And that, at the end of the day, is what this team comes down to. Unfortunately, both of our top scorers are both athletes who are also prone to be a little error prone, right? Like, both with Alexa Gray and Kira Van Rijk, they're both prone to put a few errors on the board, right? So ultimately, I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity. But as some people are saying in the chat, I think we just need a little bit more depth. Much like United States of America, who it seems like you guys can go to anyone, run any type of lineup, and you're getting dubs. We need maybe not that kind of depth. Don't think we can get there, but we need a little bit more depth than what we currently have.
Yeah, a couple good points in the YouTube chat. By the way, if you're listening on the audio podcast after the fact, check out the show live on the Volleyball Source YouTube channel every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube right now, get in the chat. We're seeing your questions. Yeah, 2 Jacks for one of our Discord homies. Great point. Yeah, someday you'll be able to use more than 8 players. Today, unfortunately, is not that day, because I totally agree. There's a big drop off after those first 8 or 9 girls.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the biggest frustration in all of this is the injury to Autumn Bailey back in 2019, and she destroyed her knee. I believe it was an ACL, and she's been recovering and rehabbing since then, and has had a multiple surgery. But that tandem of Autumn Bailey, who's a former Michigan State star, along with Alexa Gray, and then if you add in athletes like Howe and Mitrovic, that would have been a really, really good left side core. Having those two come off the bench, but losing Autumn Bailey is still hurting 3 years later.
Yep, and another great point in the chat is glad to see an actual playoff format and no Final Six garbage. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Of all the things that we've complained about the FIVB and the structure of this tournament, this is a step in the right direction. This is the first year for VNL that will have a proper single elimination bracket. None of this Final Six trash with like pool play and top 2 make it to the semifinals. No, none of that. 8-team bracket. Very typical traditional tournament style, single elimination. You win 3 matches, you win the tournament. That's it. So I'm definitely excited about that format for both the men's and the women's finals. A couple other points from this week's VNL on the women's side. There's actually really a lot to get to here. You mentioned Japan. Ouch. 8-0, perfect coming in. And I asked you, Everett, on last week's show, do you think that Japan finishes the tournament undefeated? You said no, because that they had a little bit of a tougher schedule in Calgary. We were suspicious that they may have had a very, very easy schedule those first 2 weeks. However, I don't think either of us predicted this. I was not expecting Japan to drop all the way from first in the VNL to 6th. That was very surprising.
Yeah, and absolutely. I don't think anyone saw it. When I said I thought they were going to drop in, I was thinking like 2-2. You know, 3-1 maybe, like 2-2, losing a match. Like, going 8-0 in the first 2 weeks was overachieving massively, right? And I mean, I think I called the U.S. men's team the biggest overachieving team in VNL this year. But up until that point, the reality is that it had been the Japanese women going 8-0, perfect. For them to crash and burn like this, that's absolutely massive, right? It can't be understated how big that is. And you know what? If they just lose one game in there, they're in that top 4, right? They're playing in the top 4, but going 0-4. Now you have to play Brazil in the first round. Like, that's basically the end of Japan's tournament.
Yep. Yeah, that hurts. You have to play exactly Brazil in the first round. That is probably a death blow. I totally agree with you. And one of those Japanese losses that I thought was really interesting was the very, very last one, a 5-set loss to Belgium. As we put some of the individual scoring performances up on the screen, actually the 2 leading scorers on the women's side in all of VNL going head to head. Britt Herbots of Belgium finishing at 306 points. Which is absolutely ridiculous. I read somewhere that Herbots had 4 30-point games in VNL. 4. And the rest of VNL combined, every other player in the tournament total had 4 30-point games. That's how much of a workhorse Britt Herbots was for this Belgian team, and
That's
up
insanity.
against Serena Kogo head-to-head, like the 2 top scorers in the tournament. Kogo, who was just terrific for Japan, but they didn't really have much else that last week in Ottawa. It was funny that it all kind of came down to that. And at the very, very end, Belgium actually beat Japan 3-2. I think it was 15-10 in the 5th. Let me pull it up.
Real quick, Herbots had 4 30-point games and 2 29-point games.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And all of the rest of her games,
nuts.
she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 matches above 20 points, one with 18 and one with 6. Britt Herbots is a scoring machine, and she will not be in VNL next year.
That is exactly what I wanted to get to, is because Belgium beat Japan in 5 on the very last day. They thought that because they beat Japan, because they got a win and got to 4 and 8, that they were going to be in. They thought that or rather not in, but not relegated. They thought that was what they needed. However, it was really quite the scene as they won. They won the match, all this joy, exuberance, and then they learned that this happened elsewhere in the tournament. Bulgaria got their only win of the week at home in Sofia, beating Poland. And it was after the Dominican Republic had a surprisingly good week and Canada had a surprisingly good week, or just were able to beat Turkey in that first match, and that was good enough. Bulgaria and Belgium were really the two teams in a race to the bottom for relegation. And after Belgium beat Japan, they thought that they survived until they learned about this. Bulgaria beating Poland, and it's actually Bulgaria that survives, and they do not get relegated. They have the points tiebreaker over Belgium there in the standings. So exactly like you said, Everett, Britt Herbots is a monster. She's a top 5 outside hitter in the world at the very, very least, and she will not be playing VNL this next year unless they can win the FIVB Challenger Cup. And that's something I wanted to bring up because this was posted by Britt Herbots on her Instagram. It reads, "The end. We finished another VNL, and I have to be honest, I have a double feeling after this one. I loved playing every single match, playing in front of amazing fans, fighting for every point, giving all my energy, but it has been hard. Teammates getting injured, COVID, jet lags, and no matter what, my team was still standing strong every single match. Always ready to fight, never giving up. Not being the last team of the VNL and still having to fight to earn our spot for next year makes me so mad. It's just so unfair because we showed the world that we deserve to be here and to hashtag be part of the game. Now it's time for a break to get my rest and to reflect. Thank you all." Everett, Belgium finishes 4-8. There is a 6-way tie at 4-8. That is not the last place team in the tournament. You have Korea sitting down there at an absolutely embarrassing 0-12. Yet Korea is guaranteed a spot next year's 3 sets. Korea won 3 sets in 12 matches. That's 1 set per week. And Korea is guaranteed a spot next year's VNL, while Belgium is going to have to fight their way through the Challenger Cup to play again next year. That is garbage.
Not only does Belgium deserve to be there, but the volleyball world and volleyball fans and potential volleyball fans deserve to see Britt Herbots. And that's where the biggest loser is all this. Like, we have arguably one of the best athletes we have who will not be competing next year because her country doesn't make enough money for the competition, as opposed to another country that only won 3 sets. They didn't even win as many sets as Belgium has won matches, as any other team had won the matches, and yet they're given the right to compete for next year. Like,
yeah, you can't justify
where
it.
do we go wrong?
Yeah, there's
Where do we go wrong?
There's just nothing you can say. There's just nothing that can be said to justify that from a competitive standpoint or any standpoint that makes any sense at all, even though we know what the reason actually is, and that's that Korea is a wealthy country, even though they're this year fielded a terrible, terrible women's volleyball team in this VNL. It is a crime that Britt Herbots may or may not be in VNL next year. And we'll talk about Challenger Cup in a little bit, because with the news of Belgium's relegation, we now know the 8 teams in FIVB Challenger Cup, and I would say that Belgium are the early favorites to win that tournament, but you never know. It's not certain, and they're going to have probably 3 30-point games out of Britt Herbots again to just get back into the tournament where they belong. Meanwhile, Korea, 0-12, only wins 3 sets the entire tournament, and they get to play next year. It's just ridiculous. I can't justify it, and there's really just nothing more to say. I feel very bad for Belgium and their fans. They don't deserve this.
No, they don't, and the volleyball world doesn't deserve this, and yet this is the type of decision making that puts us where we are.
Right.
It's frustrating.
However, I do want to give Bulgaria credit, because without their best player by far, Elitsa Vasileva, who got married to Alexander Atanasievich and took the tournament off, without their best player by far, they still were able to be the last-minute addition to the tournament, because remember, they took Russia's spot. They weren't even supposed to be in VNL, and they were kind of the last-second replacement for Russia in the field, and they managed to stay in VNL. So that was impressive.
Big ups for them, but how about the other side of the net with Poland? What happened to Poland?
Exactly what I wanted to bring up. Right? 0-4, another 0-4 team.
What's going on?
They went from very good playoff position. They were 4-4, and it was really between them and Thailand to get the last playoff spot. And they completely throw it away by going 0-4. Even if they had won 1 match, it probably would have been good enough to make it in, because Thailand finished at 5-7. Yeah, look at that. Look how far Poland dropped from 8th to 13th by going 0-4 in a do or die week. That is brutal.
Yeah, and I mean, their losses really are they're just a little lackluster in my opinion.
Bad ones.
Like losing to Bulgaria, losing
in a do or die match.
losing to the Dominican Republic.
That's a bad one.
Losing 3-0 to China, including in 25-8 first set. Losing 3-1 to Italy. I mean, okay, that's kind of to be expected. But yeah,
25-8. I remember seeing that scoreline when it happened, but I forgot about it until you just brought it up just now.
Like it looks like they got pummeled by Italy and China, and then they just had no will to live throughout the rest of the week. Because like this Dominican team is not that great.
No, I can't believe they won any matches like that. That Dominican team had no business winning any matches. They had actually kind of a surprisingly good week. They beat Thailand 3-1 for full points. They got stomped by China. They beat Poland in 5, and then I think they got crushed by somebody else. I can't remember, but I mean, I thought they were going to get relegated, and they were actually they only missed the playoffs by 1 point, 5-7 with 14 points to Thailand's 15.
The reality is that Korea should have been relegated, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's the long and short of it.
Yep. So we've talked a lot about the bottom of this women's VNL. I think a little bit too much. I want to highlight the matches at the top of the VNL. This one was one that happened at the very, very end of the tournament. It was actually a win and in scenario for Germany. The German women were one of those teams that were at 4-7, and if they had taken 3 points and gotten to 5-7 against the USA, they actually would have made the playoffs over Thailand, but they couldn't get it done in that one. The USA, who, I mean, we pretty much had nothing to play for at that point, still got really good performances. I mean, Sarah Wilhite, who's on the fringe of the World Championship roster, led the match in scoring. That's kind of the depth of the USA women that we're talking about. And
so annoying.
What you want to
just like
borrow?
You guys can go to like the 13th player on your bench and on your roster, or 15th or whatever, and be like, yeah, just go out there, score 25. You can do it.
There's and that's kind of leads me into some of my points about the USA. We talked about Canada a good amount already, but I also wanted to show this match. USA beating Turkey at 3-2, 18-16 in the fifth. That one was definitely the best match that I watched last week. It didn't have quite as much on the line as like the Belgium-Japan match or a couple of those other 5-setters with playoff implications, but it was probably the most high-level match played this week. And some of the numbers coming from it were pretty interesting. I mean, Abrar Karakurt led the match in scoring with 27, 24 for 48 attacking, only 7 errors. It's actually not bad. Pretty good efficiency on 50% kills. Kara Bayama, another like random, third, fourth, fifth American outside hitter. Hey, go out, score 25. It's 26 points for Kara Bayama, who's headed to Vakif Bank next year. 24 for 47 attacking. Like, this is a player that not all that many people know on the international stage. I mean, she had a really good year at Zhezhov, but she doesn't have any business getting 47 sets in a VNL match and leading the USA in scoring, but she did. Annie Drews 24, Kelsey Robinson 21, and then second leading scorer for Turkey was Zara Gunesh with 19. I mean, like 19 points from a middle on 14 for 23 with 5 blocks is incredible, but again, they're just missing that left side presence.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that Turkey is keeping them alive is they're blocking this one. 12 blocks to your guys' 5. You guys are making a few more errors as well, but like this is where it comes up again. You can't have a middle being consistently your second top scorer, right?
No, you can't have that.
You can't, because you have the one option on the right side with Karakurt, and then you've got Gunesh, and someone on the left side has to step up. They need to take Karatasu, since they're going to be naturalizing all these athletes. They need to take Karatasu and toss her to the left side.
She's left-handed. It's not going to work. I don't see it.
I just don't care. Do it. Otherwise, you've got this like wealth of riches. Then what else? What else is Melissa Vargas and Karatasu doing as Turkish citizens now? Like
playing in the Sultanlar League, and that's it, because they can only have one naturalized player. Saliha Sahin actually in this one was really good. 15 for 26 with only 1 error. That's actually above 50% efficiency, but they just didn't use her that much. And like Ada Erdem 14, Maliha Ismailulu with 5 for 14 at the other outside. That's kind of the weakness there. But I want to talk more about the USA, because right now, I mean, going into the World Championships or going into like VNL finals, there's actually a lot about the USA roster that I'm really curious to see what happens. I mean, we had my boy, the greatest player of all time, Karch Kirai, on the thumbnail for this episode of the show, coaching the USA women. He's the best to ever do it as a player. Now he's quickly approaching GOAT status as a coach if he keeps on this pace. But he's going to have some hard decisions to make here. I mean, think even about setters. Now that Jordan Poulter's healthy, she played this week in Calgary and was good. But it was mostly Lauren Carlini who we saw more so than Micah Hancock previously in the tournament. So what's he going to do about the second setter? I think opposite is set. I think that's Jordan Thompson, Annie Drews. Middle is a little bit of a toss-up as well. I mean, Chaka Bogu, Haley Washington are locks, and then it's kind of between like Dana Retke, Tori Dixon, I don't know, maybe like Anna Stevenson. There are a couple other characters there. Outside hitter is the really interesting one because you've got Catherine Plummer, you've got Kelsey Robinson, but then like we said, Sarah Wilhide had awesome matches. Cara Bayama had awesome matches.
Yeah.
Ali Franti has had awesome matches. Like there's so many more American outside hitters who are like B+ or A- international level players, and we just have like 8 of them just sitting around. So what Karch does for the VNL finals roster and then the World Championships roster later in the year is going to be really interesting at the outside spot.
If we take a macro level look at this, do we think that we're starting to see like on the verge of an American women's dynasty, like we've seen with like the Brazilian men in the past? Like, is that where we're at right now? Just because of the quality that the NCAA that is putting out, the quality of the system and the program that Karch is running, you have so much depth, so much buy-in. Everyone wants to be a part of it. Like, now that they've got that camel off their, that monkey off their back, and they've won the Olympic gold, like, is everything going to start flowing now? Is because that's really what it's starting to seem like.
It's the best program in the world. It's the best development system in the world, and it's the most complete senior level national team in the world. The only thing that'll stop them from a dynasty is if they run into a Tiana Boskovic or a Paula Egonu or maybe even like an Abrar Karakurt or like some singularly unbelievable athlete that gets in their way in a big tournament, because the U.S. doesn't have one of those.
I don't think Boskovic has the ability to, and mostly because I don't think she has the quality around her. I think Italy has the overall quality to be able to put Egonu in a spot to beat the U.S. But
yep, I think
I would at this point I would give like out of 10 matches, I'd give 3 to Italy and 7 to the U.S.
I think Italy is the only team that if they played 5 matches could win 2 or even more. I think we
that's more or less what we that's what I said.
Pretty much. I'm reducing the fractions for the fans a little bit. The USA wrote the book on defending Tiana Boskovic in the Olympic semifinals last year. The way that Karch defended against her has had ripple effects on all of club volleyball, because everyone against Boskovic now shifts position 6 all the way back to the deep corner, blocks the line, and puts basically 2 defenders on her deep cross court, and that totally shut her down in the Olympics. Brazil doesn't match up very well against the U.S. at all until they get like a Sheila Castro in her prime level opposite that can compete there. The USA is better at every position except Gabi, and we're so much better everywhere else that we'll beat Brazil 10 times out of 10. I think Italy with Egonu and then a couple of the other players that are, A-, B+ level international players, that's the only team that I see beating the U.S. in a major international tournament for the foreseeable future. And to go back to the bracket, we could very well see that in the finals. I would pick Italy to go to the finals from that left side of the bracket there. Italy-China is going to be good, and then Italy-Turkey is going to be good. But I do think that Italy's better than both those two teams, and I think USA will get past Serbia and Brazil no problem. So I would pick USA-Italy for the final, and that match I think might be a little bit of an early turning point for the year of, is this really a long-term dynasty for the U.S.?
I do agree that Italy is the one team that has the potential to beat the U.S., but I also think that Italy it's also the one team that has potential to self-implode.
Oh, for sure. They can go 25-15, 15-15 and get swept if things don't go right.
But to anyone, right?
Right.
Because if Egonu just doesn't show up one day and they play against China, like I think China and Brazil bring way more consistency to their game than Italy. But Italy's top end is just way higher than either of those teams.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, China's actually had a really good week, like quietly. They definitely benefited from Japan having a terrible week, but China's played some pretty good volleyball here lately, even without Zhu Ting. So I still don't think they're going to beat Italy, but you're right. The consistency at the level that they play, if they get Egonu on a bad day, they can beat them. But I don't think there's quite enough talent there. But I agree with your point in general. Italy's extremely streaky, but at the tops of their peaks, I think they might be the only team in the world that can legitimately take down the USA right now.
Yeah, and absolutely. I am excited for this playoff draw. I think it's a great draw.
It is a good draw.
I think it's going to be fun all around, even from the quarterfinals on.
Get started July 13th, which I'm pretty sure is next Wednesday, so 8 days from now, in Ankara, Turkey. That's Brazil versus Japan and United States versus Serbia next Wednesday, and then Italy versus China and Turkey versus Thailand next Thursday. So we'll talk about those. We'll preview those on next week's show. Everett, is there anything else you want to go over about women's VNL before we move on?
No, I think
we talked about playoffs. We talked about relegation. We talked about Korea being embarrassing. We talked about Canada. I mean, and we've covered it. I think we covered it kind of nicely.
Yeah, I mean, there's the only we're good. Let's move on to week 3 of VNL men, or do we have ads first?
We have ads first, and the last thing I want to bring up about the women. I don't have a graphic for this, but I'll go through it. We mentioned that Belgium, although being relegated from VNL, still has a chance to earn a spot in next year's VNL, and that is through the FIVB Challenger Cup. So we've talked about it a little on the show before, but I want to make the format clear again. So there's 16 teams in VNL. There's this whole core Challenger team garbage that we already complained about, but the lowest ranked Challenger team drops down into this Challenger Cup tournament, which is an 8-team tournament full of teams from just different continental national team qualifiers. And now with now that we know Belgium will be playing in it later this year, the field is set. So the format of Challenger Cup is very, very simple. It's actually the same as the VNL finals. It's just an 8-team single elimination tournament. So I don't have a graphic for it, but I'll go through it. Croatia versus Kazakhstan is one quarterfinal. Belgium versus the Czech Republic is another. Colombia versus France, and then Puerto Rico versus Cameroon. So those are the quarterfinals of the FIVB Challenger Cup. That starts. This is all in Croatia, starting on July 28th, which is that's my birthday. Actually, I think that's a Thursday. So it's several Thursdays from now in Croatia. Just very simple single elimination tournament. The winner of that gets that final spot in the 2023 Volleyball Nations League. So it could be Belgium, but they're going to have to run the table. They're going to have to beat the Czech Republic. They're going to have to beat, I would have to assume that Croatia at home will beat Kazakhstan. And then on the other side of the bracket there, France, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Cameroon, I would have to assume that France will come out of that. So Belgium, or their next summer is not out of the question yet for VNL, but that is the path for one of those 8 teams to grab the last spot in next year's VNL. And there'll be exactly the same thing on the men's side once we know who that last team is, like whoever gets last in VNL this year.
It really comes down to, like, just looking at these teams, it really comes down to is Britt Herbots going to be healthy? Is she going to be tired? Right? Like, how many sets did she just get in VNL?
A lot.
How much time are they giving her, off in between that? Because looking at that, like, I think Kazakhstan is actually kind of as low-key good. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that
I only saw them back when we had the first edition of the place that shall not be named hosting an FIVB event. It was an Olympic qualifier in 2019, and Kazakhstan was there, and they went a pretty embarrassing 0-3 and didn't beat anybody. So I don't really have any high hopes for them. But I mean, you never know. I still think that Belgium's the best team in this tournament because they have the best player. But I mean, Croatia has Samantha Fabrice. She's really good, and they're playing at home. So it's just, I mean, we agree that there's definitely some injustice here for Belgium, but they do still have a chance. FIVB Challenger Cup for the women going down starting July 28th. Men, very similar. I think theirs is in Korea, about the same time in late July. So we'll talk about that on next week's show once we know the final standings for the men. Speaking of the men, we got to talk about men's VNL. But first, Everett, let the people know about BetUS.
BetUS is America's favorite sports book. It's been around since 1994. They're the true OGs of the game. And hey, it's the betting season. You got golf going on. We got Wimbledon going on. Our girl Claire Hanna is covering Wimbledon right now for TSN. You could put a bet on that. There's a million baseball games every single day. F1 is right in the middle of the season. So when you sign on to BetUS and use the code Volley125, you are going to get a 125% deposit bonus. That means you get $125% dollars for free. You put in 100, you got $125 for free. You bam, just like that. It's literally free money. So use the link down below and use the code Volley125 to get your discount for 125% deposit bonus. It's literally free money. Go use it. Go make more money. And then you can use that money and have it on over to that volleyball.store and buy some of our merch. You can get the spicy volleyball merch that I'm wearing right now. You can get the make volleyball great merch. You can get water bottles. You can get hats. You can get stickers. You can get baseball tees, T-shirts. You get 9x9 merch. It's all there. I think at this point I might need to make 9x9 the 91 square meters best volleyball show, because I am getting chirped relentlessly in the Discord. So we might have to make it, but make sure you head over to thatvolleyball.store and grab yourself some merch, and that's a great way to support us. All right, guys, let's go back to the show.
Yes, let's get back to the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Men's Volleyball Nations League Week 3 has started today. It is in 2 places in the world. We already did a pretty detailed standings analysis on last week's show, so we're not going to do that again. Check out last week's 9x9 for Everett and I's playoff picks for the men. But the men This is it. But by this time next week, we will know the 8 finalists on the men's side. Week 3 going down in 2 places in the world right now. The one is in Gdansk, Poland, featuring Poland, the hosts, Bulgaria, Italy, Iran, the Netherlands, China, Serbia.
I guess we're experiencing
technical
difficulties.
You got me, Everett? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can see you.
Well, brilliant. Yeah, my iPad that runs the show just decided to completely crash for absolutely no reason. So,
okay, good.
That was pretty unpleasant, but I do think that we rescued things. Let me check on the YouTube side to make sure everything's working. Yeah, okay. I think we're good. Let us know in the chat, boys and girls, if you can still see us and hear us. So let's see. As I was saying, I think I was saying VNL in Japan, right? Is that what we were talking about? Okay, let's put that up on the screen.
There we go.
Let's put our faces up on the screen. Yay! Okay, we did it.
Hey, we got it back.
All right.
Let's go.
Thanks for rolling with the punches. Men's VNL in Osaka this week. The USA, Germany, Canada, Argentina, Brazil, Japan, Australia, and France. And there already today were just 4 matches played, because unfortunately with VNL being in Asia, the times for us North American viewers are just positively horrible. And but in Gdansk and Poland, they're actually kind of North American friendly. But the men's week kicked off with this banger. My beloved USA team defeating Germany 3-1, 25-21, 19. Then Germany took one 22-25 before we finished them off 25-18. Everett Micah Christensen is back. And boy, is it good to see Micah Christensen back. Like one of the very, very few weaknesses that the U.S. has had so far this tournament, as well as Josh Twininga has played. He's definitely been exposed as a blocker. And there's just been some late game decisions that he's made that Micah Christensen he wins you sets in those cases, whereas another setter just might not be able to give that to you. So it's really good to see Micah Christensen back in this.
You know who I think is the happiest to see Micah Christensen back so far?
Probably Aaron Russell.
Probably Aaron Russell. Going 19 for 34. Yeah, not bad. He had a 47% efficiency, which is absolutely redonkulous.
That'll certainly work. Lucas Massa, who we've talked about, we both talked about how impressed we were by him in Ottawa as playing middle blocker for Germany. This time he started at opposite. So no Linus Weber in this one for the Germans. Massa 14 for 40 with 4 errors. So much less of a good performance with Massa on the right side than how good he was in the middle throughout the rest of the tournament. Just not even close to efficient enough.
I won't lie. Watching him play in the middle, he has such a good swing for the middle. His ability to float just straight up and then just dominate the ball straight down. Like he was very dominant in the middle, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be able to translate to the right side. I know he's going to be playing right side next year for Lumberg, and he was a backup right side past year for Friedrichshafen. But it's going to be interesting to see. I might actually go back and watch this match just to check it out, just to see kind of how he looks on the right side, because I'm still not sure if his athleticism that we see in the middle can translate to the right side.
I'm with you. I am a guy who's played both of those positions, not nearly at this high of a level, but it is a very different skill set. And Massa looks great in the middle. And the exact point that you made, his arm looks like the arm swing of a middle blocker and not that of an opposite. And you've just got to be a high ball scoring threat at opposite of this level. And he just wasn't efficient enough today. Kyle Ensing, his numbers were okay, 12 for 25 with 5 errors, plus an ace. That's not quite as efficient as we want our opposite to be, although, we're not going to get Matt Anderson back in this tournament, but we are going to get him back later in the summer. TJ DeFalco, 11 for 19, only 2 errors. That's about 50% efficiency. That's pretty good as well. So it's just really good to see Micah Christensen back. And the USA now, let's see, where are we at in the standings? That's win number 7, right? I think we've got to be 7-2.
You're 7-2. You're in 4th at the moment.
Yeah.
1 point behind France.
Fabulous. So I think if the U.S. gets another win this week, we might rest the starters for the last game. But next up for the U.S. is France, and you certainly can't take that match for granted. I think we've got France, we've got Canada, and then we have one other one this week. I don't remember who. I'll have to look that up in a minute. But yeah, the U.S. are back. Micah Christensen's back. That's wonderful. You want to talk about the other match that we saw today, Everett, or do you want to talk about some roster things? Because there's some interesting roster moves for week 3, but we also got to get to the Maple Volleys.
Yeah, let's talk about. Hey, we've known for a long time that Argentina is our kryptonite. They just play a skill level of game that we just can't compete with, and especially with the current roster. We talked about it last week that I was not confident that we would be able to get a win this week. And I was hoping that if anywhere we were going to be able to sneak a win through, it was going to be against Argentina. And that clearly didn't happen. Now, much like the women's team, we outscored them in this one. Of course, we couldn't do much else other than that. They outblocked us, they outserved us, and we made more errors than them.
21 service errors.
21
Yikes.
Service errors for Team Canada. Is ugly. It is truly ugly. And that's something that is going to have to be reined in, because 6 for Mar, 8 for Sclater. That's a lot. And that's a lot of opportunities that we're just giving to Argentina. We're not putting any pressure on them. And in the past, whenever we've been able to have success against them, is by keeping the pressure on them. And we clearly weren't able to do it in this one. Attacking wise, things are looking pretty good. Mar, you can start to see how the total of this tournament is getting to him. This is by far his worst game so far. 9 errors, 10 kills, only 10 for 31 in this one. Good to see Lepke starting to get some more volume in this one with 37 sets. But you know what? There's been so much talk especially on the Discord, like criticizing the decisions about who's on the court and stuff like that with this team. But the reality is that I don't know many teams that graduated as many all-world players as we did this past year. When you look at how there's no more Gord Perrin, there's no more Graham Vigrass, there's no more, for the moment, there's no Steve Marshall or Blair Band. There's no
Shawan Vernon Evans.
Right? Which, no matter what you want to say with him, that's a guy who we've relied on in the past to put up 20 points in a match and rely on him, right? This team is doing their best out there. And like that's really the only long and short of it, right? We can't ask much more from this team, changing the style of plays with the roster turnovers that we've seen, with the change of style of play that we've seen, with the fatigue that we've seen. It's going to be a long process, and this beginning part might not be very ugly. I think both of us maybe had some high expectations based off that one exhibition game against France, where I think France maybe took the foot off the pedal for a little bit, just for an exhibition game. But I can also see it happening. But I don't know if we're going to be able to pull out a win this week. The schedule is just too tough. The teams that we're going to be playing is going to be too tough, and it's going to take a good one from us.
Yeah, and we've known that Argentina is Canada's kryptonite for a long time. I've been making fun of you for that for years, but at this point, I just want Canada to not get relegated. I still don't think they will because Australia still exists in this tournament. But I'm with you. If Canada was going to get a win this week, it was going to come here, and it didn't. Their other matches are Japan, the United States, and who's the last one? Let's see. Brazil.
Yeah.
Oof.
I mean, Japan is known to be basically meme worthy. Like us playing Japan in Japan is known to be basically meme worthy.
Yeah, World Cup 2019. I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. That one's been on a few Titans volley highlight reels. You guys are rolling really, really good right now. Maybe I think honestly, and this you're going to be mad at this one, but if we're going to pull out a win, I think pulling one against the U.S. is maybe possible. If we see Straw rest some guys, and
yeah, you have to hope that we beat France.
It's one that we can get up for. Like screw up, boys. We might lose every game, but at least let's beat the U.S. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go beat the U.S. That's something the boys can get behind.
Yeah, you'd better hope we beat France. If we don't beat France, there's no possible way we play the bench against Canada. So if we do beat France and we secure a playoff spot, then maybe we do play the bench against Canada. So you better hope for that because Everett, the trash talk between you and I will be flying quite high on July 9th, which is it's this Saturday at 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. So that sucks. We won't be able to have all that much fun watching it together.
I'll actually be getting home from work at that time, so I'll be raring to go.
All right. Well,
are you going to be getting home from the bar at the time?
No, I'll be probably in a tent in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin.
Oh, you're
Friday night of a certain grass volleyball tournament that we'll talk about later. Yeah, maybe I'll stream it on my phone. I don't know. I got to figure out a way to watch Canada versus the USA because that's one of my favorite rivalries, and it just happens to be at 1:40 in the morning my time, which really sucks. But just to wrap it up with Canada, going to be a tough week. Still don't. Before we talk about the last thing that happened this week, a couple notable roster moves that are happening in week 3. One is the return of Luciano De Checo, and that I think has to be giving Argentina a lot of. They were able to beat Canada in this match because the difference, and I only watched the highlights of this one. I want to sit down tonight and watch the full USA and Canada matches, but the difference, the visible difference in the Argentinian offense, even without Bruno Lima doing much of anything, with Luciano De Checo's setting instead of Matias Sanchez is night and day. So it's and I'm actually kind of surprised that Argentina bothered to bring De Checo because they have basically no chance of making the playoffs, and they can't get relegated. Why bring your setter? But yeah, you got to get the guys some competitive rhythm before world champs, and Luciano De Checo is obviously one of the great difference makers in the game. Another interesting roster move is one that I actually kind of called for, talking about the Polish men. Sure enough, they do bring 3 middles only in Biniak, Kłos, and Kochanowski, but instead of adding a 5th outside hitter, they actually added a 3rd opposite. So,
Butrin.
Yeah, okay. Bartosz Kurek, Łukasz Kaczmarek, and Karol Butrin are all on the roster this week in Gdansk. Butrin, I would assume, is no, I think Butrin is a service
out there. Oh, I was going to say, do you think Gubrich is out there? We'll listen to the 9x9.
Well,
that's what I think.
We might have gotten a few ideas in his head when we were chatting with him in Ottawa, but sure enough, he brings Jan Firle over Grzegorz Łomacz, which we love, and he brings Butrin as probably an elite level service substitute. Also, Bartosz Bednorz, not Bartosz Kfolek. So Bednorz actually today made his VNL debut, and we'll talk about Poland in just a second. But a couple other, we talked about Micah Christensen coming in. Also, Ivan Zaitsev is in Japan playing with Italy this week, and he didn't play today as Italy destroyed Bulgaria with pretty much no problems. But Zaitsev is there, so we might see him this week. That'll be kind of cool. But speaking of Poland, Everett, wow, Poland at home goes down to their hated rivals Iran in 5, 3-2 Iran, 15-7 in the 5th, after one of the greatest service runs that I've ever seen from Amin. You know, their lefty opposite who we've talked about.
I'm very aware.
Absolute cannon. Look at these scores from 2-2 to 12-2. A side out and then a 9-0 run on Amin's serve, including, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just trying to count the aces. At least 4 aces. It's like it's just astonishing the run that he went on. He got 3 in the stat sheet, but 1 was a near ace. Crazy. Iran in Poland beats Poland in 5 with like most of the Polish A team there. Is this Polish team a little bit vulnerable, or is Iran still like managing to capture lightning in a bottle against the best teams in the world?
No, I think this Polish team is sloppy as hell. 41 errors in this one to Iran's 22.
That's a lot.
You had Bednorsh making 14 errors, 8 in attacking, 6 in serving on his own, right? Obviously, he's a little rusty with this team, but still, those are some big error numbers right there. And like you just a lot of errors on the Polish side of things and a lot of serve receive errors. 3 errors in serve receive for Paweł Zatorski. 3 for Zatorski. That's unheard of.
Yeah, it's not good.
2 more for Śliwka, right? So the numbers just really not looking great. Like they put up great team numbers, right? They had out-attacked Poland 60 to 56, outblocked them 12-5. Even with a mean serve run, they still outserved them 10-9. But 41 to 22 errors, that's the difference maker right there for Poland. So I think it was just sloppy, undisciplined volleyball from Poland, which I think you're going to get sometimes with this team. You know, they're not going to be the disciplined, executing machine that the American women are. They're never going to be that. They're a highly talented team that is probably going to take a few games here and there. And it seems like they had an ugly one in this one, and Iran was able to through in that.
Yeah, Iran. So I watched this game. Iran looked super impressive. They played much cleaner volleyball. I mean, 9 aces to 15 service errors is a really good ratio. Only 22 errors total. Like only 7 pure attacking errors in 5 sets is a good number for an Iranian offense that really come into this tournament we knew nothing about. And this Amin character, I mean, what a monster. And Milad Abadapur against Poland, where he's played club and has citizenship, really good match. 14 for 24, 18 points. Amin attacking 14 for 27, plus the run in the 5th. And Esfandiar, Amir Hossein Esfandiar is a young outside hitter. He's only 23. He's 2 meters and 9. So he's a big dude, and 19 for 32 today with only 3 errors. That's 50% efficiency. Like
50% efficiency.
Out of nowhere after Iran, like that first week in Brazil were just so bad and just lackluster and unspectacular. They beat the US, they beat Poland here, they beat Brazil, they beat somebody else good last week. Or they laid an egg against Bulgaria, but then responded.
Beat us.
They definitely they
crushed us.
And
you know what? After the first week, I remember talking about like that. Iran is much like Canada, and we're very much on the same timeline. They entered the world scene a little bit earlier than us, but we were the 2 teams over the last decade to kind of cement ourselves within that upper echelon of volleyball, to be able to beat the top teams and to make the Olympics and to be VNL world champs, all of that stuff. And after week 1, I was kind of looking at it, be like, man, Iran's really not got much in the pocket, but since then they have showed up completely different. And it looks like they are handling their transition from one era to another much better than we are so far. And this shows it. I mean, the fact that they're able to spread the offense out the way that it does, 18, how many attempts did they 32 for Esfandiar, 24 for Abadapur, 27 for Amin? Like, they are just spreading that offense like butter, and you've got talent everywhere, right? You've got that ability. Like, you saw all of these guys come up. You saw Maroof help them. You see guys like Abadapur help them. You've had that success with the juniors and the youth levels. Like, I'm excited to see what happens with Iranian volleyball over the next little bit, because they're showing up with quality.
Yeah, Mohammad Vadi seems to be their new starting setter, and he just deserves a lot of credit for filling Maroof's shoes and distributing such a balanced offense. Bartosz Kurik, a bright spot for Poland, 19 for 34, 2 blocks, 2 aces. He's had a ridiculously good tournament, but yeah, they give Bartosz Bednorz the start at home, assuming it's going to be good enough, and in his first match of VNL, just really, really sloppy. So it actually is a very interesting win that has a lot of effects on the tournament, because Iran coming in was, I think, in 8th, right on the bubble I think they came in at 4-4. Yes, so they improved to 5-4. They knocked Poland out of first place, and now actually Italy leads VNL on the men's side as of this very second, 7-2, 22 points, just because of how easily they beat Bulgaria today. So very interesting battle for the 1 seed. And Italy, funny enough, Italy doesn't even need to win all these matches, because if they finish top 8, they've got the 1 seed because they're hosting. They might just go earn the 1 seed straight up.
I mean, they've already got the 1 seed, right? Because they're not going to be falling out of the top 8.
Yeah, they've got 7 wins. It's locked.
They've got 7 wins. They've only got 3 more. The worst that they can finish 7-5, right? So you have to go pretty far down the roster to get to, or the standings to get to that point.
Yep. So it looks like Italy will take the 1 seed into the finals on the men's side, but yeah, still a lot to play for. Iran did themselves a lot of favors, but like we talked about a little on last week's show, some of the huge matches coming up this week for the men. Serbia versus Slovenia head to head is enormous, and then Serbia versus Iran later in the week head to head, equally enormous. Just huge matches that might single handedly decide the playoffs. So a lot of good stuff going on this week for sure.
100%. And I'm going to be watching any match that involves Australia. And for the first time ever, I'm going to be trying to bet against Dave Preston. Sorry, DP, you're my boy, but what needs to be done needs to be done. And Australia has to finish last in the VNL so that Canada can stay alive. Yes,
and I still strongly suspect that will be the case. Speaking of Slovenia, Klemen Chabel is on the roster this week, so I think
let's go Chabel.
Yeah, so that they've got their full complement of dudes who have made all those Eurovolley runs, and they.
Do you think that changes anything for them? Really?
Yeah, it does, because Chabel is significantly better than Ziga Stern, and so now you don't have to play Earnout unless Mosic is passing the ball poorly, and now you don't have to set Tonček Stern 40 balls. You can set Chabel 35 balls, and the way they played well in VNL last year was by kind of strategizing Klemen Chabel into the leading scorer role, like just giving him all sorts of balls in and out of system. So with him back, I think Slovenia looks a little more like what they want to look like play style wise, and I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to make a miracle run to the playoffs. It's not mathematically impossible, but they do play Serbia tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. That is a huge
Bulgaria,
one.
Serbia, Bulgaria, Iran, and Poland.
That's not that bad of a week. It's really not that bad of a week, with Poland probably resting the starters in that last match. But
I mean, their starters are starters. Any one of those 14 guys they have right now could start.
Oh, for sure. They're a ridiculously deep team, but yeah, not impossible for Slovenia to make a run. Definitely not impossible for Serbia to make a run. So I'm with you. I think it kind of comes down to those 3 teams: Iran, Serbia, Slovenia for the last playoff spot.
If Slovenia can go 3-1 here, finish 6-6. Does that get them in? Does 6-6 get you into the playoffs?
I think 6-6 would have gotten you into the I think it will for one of the teams, but I think it would have gotten them in over Iran before Iran beat Poland, and I really think that changed a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to follow along the rest of this week. Can the Netherlands at 5-3 hold on long enough to survive in the playoffs? I think we were noticing they have a bit of an easier schedule, so maybe they can get away with it. They've got China,
Italy, Poland, Bulgaria. And China, you said?
Yeah.
Half of it's easy, the other half isn't.
Yeah, Italy, Poland, but they play Italy and Poland last, so they might be resting their guys by that point. Yeah, the Netherlands could survive. It's going to be dramatic. For sure in men's VNL. So to follow along with more of that, because there will be so much more played before next week's show, next Tuesday, join the Discord, the Volleyball Source Discord. The link is in the description for by far the greatest online community of volleyball fans that there is in the world. It's growing by the day. It is so full of the combination of great analytical, awesome content and discussion, and just ridiculous memes in a wonderful blend that I just love so much. So can't recommend enough that you join the Volleyball Source Discord, and that is a great place to chat about all the matches going on this week, especially if you don't live in the Western Hemisphere and the match times are a little bit more friendly for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unlike it is for us. Yeah, these 1 in the morning matches are brutal.
I mean, I am gonna like it. I won't lie. Like with that Saturday morning game, I'll be able to come home because that's like Friday night, Saturday morning. Coming home, right from work, I'll get myself some food, buy myself a few beers. Gonna watch that one.
Watch
live,
that quick hour in a shower of the U.S.
No, I tell you,
the
boys are gonna be ready to play the United States of America. If there's one thing that gets us chapped up, it's playing the United States.
Hey,
right?
Everett,
Like
I think we might need to make a bet. I think we might need to put something on this. What if? How about the loser, the loser of Canada versus the USA men, which is like ridiculously early Friday night, Saturday morning. The loser between you and I will sing the winner's national anthem on next week's show.
That's terrible content for our listeners. They're gonna sit and listen to us. Like, and let's be honest. Okay, if Canada wins, you need to sing the French parts.
Oh no!
Like you need to learn. You need to learn the bilingual version of "Oh Canada."
Okay, fine.
Because the Star Spangled Banner is like that's a hard song to sing.
No, it's not.
Like
all right, you got a deal. You got a deal. If the U.S. somehow loses to Canada, I will sing the the French bilingual version of the Canadian national anthem on next week's show.
Okay, boys. Like,
oh man,
you need to save me here because I do not want to have to sing the Star Spangled Banner.
I'll even write a guitar part to it behind me. I'll give you a little performance next week. It'll be fun. If the U.S. loses. Oh no! If Canada loses, dude, you're on your own. You can provide your own accompaniment if you want. Ooh, yeah, this is gonna be.
I wish I had like American jerseys or something, like something American, like an American flag. Can you send me an American flag, and I'll make it fall during, and like with fireworks, gunshots going off.
Oh my goodness! That's the wager. It's official.
Okay.
The loser of Canada USA will sing the winners anthem on next week's
win
show.
This one for me. Win this with just one match, just one more match in VNL. We're gonna take down the United States of America, and Rob Blair is gonna have to sing "Oh Canada" in English and in French.
I cannot wait to hear you sing my country's anthem on next week's show. A couple more things before we wrap up. One is that there is a gigantic transfer bomb that dropped this week, and I don't like spending that much time on transfers while VNL is literally going on. But Zhu Ting to Scandici is maybe the biggest single transfer other than
huge.
Egonu to Vakif Bank this entire year, men's or women's. Like that is a massive deal. And Scandici this past year, who was kind of just missing that one go-to unbelievable player consistently, just got one.
But especially now, because now that Liga Volley Femminile no longer has Paolo Egonu, who's just going to loom over everything, the playing field is so even.
Yeah,
and I mean we've seen like Kelsey Robinson is going to Emoko Conigliano, so is Alexa Gray. You've got what's her face, Isabel Hawk, heading to Conigliano as well. Everything's moving around, and I'm really excited to see what this top end of Italian volleyball looks like this season, because Jordan Thompson is heading to play for Monza.
Right.
Like so much quality is going to be at that top level. Those top 5 teams between Conigliano and Busto and Scandici, Monza,
Novara,
and Novara. Like those top 5 teams are going to be fun to watch, and it's really a toss up now that Egonu is gone.
Yep, quite spicy. Speaking of Isabel Haak, I'm glad you brought her up because she single-handedly carried the Swedish women's team to a win in the European Silver League. So we talked about Silver Golden Leagues a couple weeks ago. The women's hadn't finished up yet. It is now finished, and Sweden wins. And so now Sweden will play Golden League next year. They're now on the path to being a VNL team in a couple years, and it's really just on the back of one unbelievable player, which is Isabel Haak. So I wanted to shout that out for sure. Last thing I want to talk about,
but even at this point, if you're to look at Sweden versus Belgium, like I don't know if Sweden even matches up against teams like France and Czech Republic and Croatia.
They certainly have one player that matches up, and as we've seen in women's volleyball, sometimes that's all it takes. So it'll take a couple years for sure, but congrats to Sweden. They'll play Golden League next year, and you never know. You never know that they could play VNL as soon as 2024. 4 if they win everything as fast as they can. So that would be interesting. Last thing I want to talk about is something very different. This is not quite the level of professional indoor volleyball that we usually cover on this show, but Everett is very jealous and will have a lot of FOMO because of where I'm going to be this weekend, and that is the Waupaca boat ride grass volleyball tournament. This is an event in the middle of nowhere, specifically Oshkosh, Wisconsin, in the Midwestern.
Oshkosh bagosh.
That's right, in the Midwestern United States. It is they billed as the U.S. Open of grass volleyball. This tournament has been around since 1984 in many, many forms in many different places, but has since settled in this beautiful and wonderful field called Brighton Acres. There's a bunch of days worth of play. There's an AVP sand event on Friday evening that counts for AVP points if you're a beach volleyball fan. But the event that matters is 3-on-3 grass on Saturday. I live in Chicago. I live here in the Midwest, where we are obsessed with playing outdoor grass 3-on-3 in the summer. And it's just such an electric style of volleyball. It's fast. It's indoor rules mostly, so you can receive serve with your hands. You can set quickly. Ball handling guidelines are more like indoor. Block doesn't count as a touch. Stuff like that. You've got a setter and 2 attackers, so you've got some real offensive options. It's a pretty electric thing to watch. I personally find it way more fun to watch than beach, and it's not even particularly close.
Are you playing?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You're not commentating.
Yeah. I'm playing like I always do, and then as soon as my team loses in the playoffs, I'll go and start commentating the Open Finals like I did last year. So they will be live streaming the games. They do a pretty decent live production. WaupacaBoatRide.com is the website where you can find all this. But a couple of the storylines to watch out here for are on the men's side for triples. Will the out-of-system boys win it again? Now, this is Joe Worsley, Gage Worsley, and Micah Ma'a, who have come to the last 2 Waupacas and won them pretty easily. The first one was a crazy one where where Dalton Solberg got hurt, and they picked up a guy literally off the bleachers, and they won the tournament anyway. Last year, Micah came in; they were the best team there by far. It wasn't even close. One team that I do want to shout out is having a chance to beat them. Listen to this, Everett: Dustin Watton, Nicolas Scherzin, and Blake Leeson, who's a middle that plays in Germany, and then Dave Evans is their 4th, who's a VLA guy, outstanding all-around player. They with Nicolas Scherzin as a character, former NCAA Player of the Year, plays for Resovia,
Who's dishing though?
Either Leeson, the big middle, so he can block, or Watton. And they have the defensive ability that can kind of hang with the out-of-system crew, because Worsley, and Ma'a are by far the best defensive team I've ever seen on the grass.
I'm still picking the out-of-system boys over the what's Watton's thing called?
They don't have team names at Waupaca, which is a shame. It would be much more fun if they did. But yeah,
no, but what's his program?
Oh, No
called?
Easy Buckets.
Yeah, No Easy Buckets.
That'll be
Easy Buckets team.
Fun little volleyball media rivalry there.
I am sad because allegedly Eric Lepke was supposed to be playing on the team as well.
He absolutely was.
But if Eric Lepke was on that roster as well, then I'd start picking it, because Lepke is a guy who could dish. Right, he played setter in high school, so I could 100% see him being a blocking setter, but also an attack option there. They would have options, but I mean, hey, Vienna's a little bit more important than Waupaca Boat Ride.
Maybe a little, but Waupaca Boat Ride is sick. Grass 3-on-3 is electric, and I think since the out-of-system kids have gotten there and have blown up their YouTube presence, and people have seen all their vlogs and watched their tournament footage, the contagious fun atmosphere that is grass 3-on-3 has started to spread throughout the country because of the out-of-system kids kind of bringing the game to the West Coast, which is sweet. I'm a huge fan.
What you need to do while you're there is you need to go sell this show for some advertisements for next year's thing, so we can go, find some sponsors that are attached to Waupaca. I'd be like, hey, we have a show. We'd love to come set up a booth for you guys and do a show live on location. So that is a very real possibility. I've got a lot of media to do at Waupaca, both for the VLA and for this show. So I'll be doing my networking, and hopefully we can get you there next year, Everett. Everyone else watching, you've got to get to this event. You've got to get to this event. It is my favorite weekend of the year.
I seriously, I look forward to it more than any other weekend of the entire year, just to drive up into the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. They have, I think they get to 2,000 teams. I think they got to 2,000 teams again this year, which is
So
just
Rob,
ridiculous.
Here's what I propose to you.
Hit me.
One year, next year, I'll come to Waupaca. We'll do the Waupaca thing. Then the year after that, you're going to come with me to one of my favorite weekends of the year. That happens on the very same weekend.
I'm not skipping Waupaca.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah, absolutely. You
Not
have
doing
to
it.
come. You have to come to the parties, Vancouver Open in Vancouver, British Columbia. That is a party that will get you going.
I will never leave my beloved Waupaca boat ride. So it's going down this weekend. I really seriously, like, from a volleyball perspective, I strongly suggest that people check this out. Waupacaboatride.com is where you can find all the stuff about it. They're streaming a lot of the games on Saturday night. It's legitimately awesome. I think it's a way more fun outdoor format than beach 2-on-2. And if you're an indoor fan and you like the dynamic offense of like modern indoor, you're going to like grass 3-on-3 a lot. So I really recommend checking this out. I cannot wait to be there. And if you happen to watch the show and you're going to be there, come find me. I won't be hard to find. You'll hear my voice on a microphone all day on Saturday.
Well, I'm sad I won't be there, Rob. Waupaca Boat Ride is in my bucket list of items of volleyball events that I want to go to. Next year I'm coming. Just get you need to go find us some ways that it can be paid for, just as long as it's covered. That's all I need.
Yeah, that can be arranged. Well, boys and girls, in addition to Waupaca this week, we've got all VNL, men's VNL that we talked about, and on next week's show we will have a lot to break down, and not just Waupaca, but VNL finals will be coming up very shortly thereafter. So we're never slowing down the volleyball world. Join the Discord for sure, like we mentioned earlier. The link's in the description to just talk about this stuff 24/7 with volleyball fans from around the world. And check out our sponsors, thatvolleyball.store and BetUS, also in the description. Everett, anything else, or can we get the people out of here?
No, we can get the people out of here. Join the Discord. We've got over 600 great volleyball fans, and go buy us some merch. Support us a little bit. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Peace.
See you next week to see who's singing the other one's national anthem.